Hi, I'm Piyush Upadhyay, Managing Partner at Pekamiar Search, and I'm here at the Mandalay Bay in Las Vegas, Nevada at the HR Technology Conference. And I have the pleasure of having with me here Rich Mendes, Chief Marketing Officer at HireLogic. Rich, pleasure having you here.
Thanks. Good to be here.
So the reason I have Rich here is I spent the last day and a half going around and looking at a multitude of tools, HRTech tools, by the way, and I have to say, Rich, that HireLogic stood out. So why don't you start off letting everybody know a little bit more about what you guys do?
Sure. Yeah, so HireLogic essentially focuses on the recruiting side of the HR process. And if you look at that particular process, there's lots of technology that helps with sourcing and background checks and all these things. But the actual live interview, the human connection, has been largely untouched by technology. So what we've done with HireLogic is we use machine learning and AI to listen to that conversation, that live interview, whether it's happening on a remote like Zoom or Teams or on the phone or in person, and we extract in what we call interview intelligence, information about the candidate, as well as information about how the quality of that interview was, and present it back to the HR department or recruiter.
Oh, that is terrific. So is it only about translating what happens in that interview? So is it about voice to text, transcribing that, or is it more to that? Is it about generating meaningful insights and making recommendations as to what could be done differently?
Yeah, great question. So it's about both. The voice to text is sort of table stakes. We use third-party technology for that. But ultimately, we've built machine learning models trained on hundreds of thousands of interviews that are able to understand the context of who the interviewer is, what they're asking, who the candidate is, and extract meaningful insights so that at the end of a 40, 30, 60-minute call, you're not just looking at a recording or a transcript, but actual insights about the candidate, their leadership characteristics, their strengths, concerns, things like that.
Now, this sounds extremely compelling and impactful. So why don't you talk to us about a couple of case studies or examples where enterprises and companies have derived meaningful value and they've been able to tweak their recruiting process, right? In terms of what they have to do and what they don't.
Absolutely. So I'll mention one of our customers is a company called Dexian. They're formerly called Dices. They're a top 10 IT staffing firm in the United States, about 1,000 recruiters globally. And they're essentially standardizing on HireLogic for all of the touch points with their what they call consultants, who are the candidates. So every time a recruiter either initially has a conversation with a candidate or has subsequent touch-based calls, that information is captured and the insights are pushed into their ATS system, which is called Bullhorn, which is a common applicant tracking system for recruiting and staffing companies. So typically the post-interview process is the recruiter has to think about what was heard, write down the notes, go to their ATS, write it in. All that post-interview process is automated now.
Okay, so you're clearly saying that there's been a lot of productivity improvement and you've been able to make processes a lot more efficient. But talk to me a little bit about the experience. I mean, candidate experience is paramount, right? So how have you seen the candidate experience transform and become better?
Yeah, so I'll tell you one of the stories I like best is we're doing a pilot with a company and their HR department asked hiring managers to try HireLogic. And after the end of the pilot, we shut it down and we were doing a debrief. And the head of HR was getting messages from the hiring managers to please turn it back on because they hated taking notes during interviews, right? So being able to engage. The other interesting thing is when you're searching for candidates, typically an ATS has the resume and if you're lucky, a few notes. But now with HireLogic, we can enhance that ATS with a lot more rich information that you can search for candidates on.
That is terrific. And I just want to summarize for everyone. So productivity improvement, efficiency, better customer experience, that is candidate experience. But more importantly, being able to have that complete feedback loop, right, where you can go back to your interviewers and say, hey, you know what, we see some inherent bias in terms of how you pose questions. So have you seen your clients use it for their feedback process as well?
Yeah, we do. So one of the interesting things we can do is companies spend a lot of time on compliance, what you can or cannot ask during interviews, but that's heavily training based. There's really no auditing of the actual interview. So with HireLogic, we can listen for conversations and detect potential bias in questions around age, gender, race, things like that, and bubble it up for training and coaching. So a lot of our customers like that element to improve the compliance, training, and coaching of their recruiters.
Wonderful. Okay, so before you go, I just want to summarize this for everybody. I mean, if our recruiting, fraternity or clients in general, enterprises want to use this, how can they get started?
very easy. There's absolutely no cost involved to try it. You just go to HireLogic.com, H-I-R-E, logic.com, and just sign up and try it.
And is there a sandbox environment that we get?
They get a sandbox environment with an email address that they can simply add to any interview, or a phone number they can call, and we'll just listen in and send them the results after the call.
Ladies and gentlemen, that was Rich Mendes, Chief Marketing Officer at HireLogic. Rich, thank you so much for being here.
Bruce.